Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, good afternoon. My name is Meshack and I am the Space Applications Training Officer at the African Union Commission. I will present to you briefly on the African Outer Space Program and then dwell into the challenges and the niches that we can derive from this particular cooperation. I want to pass my appreciations to the Ministry of Communication and Technology of Tunisia, as well as the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research and the Japan Space Exploration Agency, JAXA, for this particular invitation. As you might all know, is that we have developed what we call the African Outer Space Program as the flagship project for Agenda 2063. And the Agenda 2063 is a blueprint of where the continent wants to be by the year 2063. And when we map out all the aspirations as well as objectives and goals of the Agenda 2063, we find that space is a cross-cutting factor in all of them. In other words, just like the SDGs is realizing that space is fundamental to its achievement, so also the Agenda 2063. And this shows you the representation of the aspirations, the objectives, and the goals of the Agenda 2063 and its interaction with space. Being informed by that, we developed the African Space Policy, the African Space Strategy, and it was adopted in January 2063 by the heads of state and government, and that marked the formalization of the Outer Space Program. The space strategy focuses on Earth observation, satellite communication, navigation positioning, and astronomy and space sciences. But of most importance is that all these are informed by the priority to address the societal needs. In other words, we look at what is the pressing need on the continent in areas like disasters, the health, weather, ecosystems, climate change, communication, trade and industry, peace and security, infrastructure, and so on. And as you all know from a space program perspective is that you start from the end to the beginning. In other words, you ask yourselves what kind of needs you're addressing, and then you come back to the technology development, which is what is happening in this particular space program. So throughout the process, we mapped out the challenges and the opportunities that the African continent presents. And we came to the conclusion that there are several challenges that are posing hindrance to the development of the space program itself. And one of them is the infrastructural gap, the inadequate connectivity, and also a huge one is the human capital development. In other words, we need to develop requisite human capacity in the skills of software and hardware to allow the space program to leapfrog. And this is where, out of these challenges, is where I find that we can find, come to the, to convey ourselves together with the people of Japan on how to address these main challenges, especially the human capital development. How do we develop the skills of the young people? The continent is endowed with a lot of young people who are willing to learn, and we can leverage on this to build the requisite capacity development. The Cubesat project should address the user needs as it is in the space program. When we come to the conclusion of or definition of the Cubesat program that should be engaged between Japan and the African continent, I believe that we should focus on the user needs, even though the Cubesats are small, but they still have the technology and the capability to address some needs such as disaster management, managing of natural resources, development of technology, human resource, the trainings, and all that needs to happen within the Cubesat project. In the potential areas of collaboration that I foresee, developing requisite capacity is a huge one because the Agenda 2063 and the African Space Strategy recognizes the need to revolutionize the software and hardware skill sets on the continent to bolster the space engineering program. And then the rapid mapping for disaster management could be one of the applications, and management of natural resources, but also as a derivative to have rapid technology development and testing with all the subsystems of the Cubesat. In conclusion, while we define and while we deliberate on this, we need to ensure that the governments are involved because they are very important. We also need to ensure that the funding strategies are clear from the beginning so that the project doesn't stall at the middle. Then we need to also find the niches between ourselves and Japan on where we need, on what particular need we are addressing and what exactly are the deliverables of this particular project. I therefore think that these are things that we will address as we go by, but I believe we have cross-cutting needs between ourselves and Japan, like disaster management, for example, flooding, cycles of drought, and we also have hotspots of earthquakes and tremors, which is also synonymous with Japan. And I believe this is one of the areas that we can address together through the space technology. So I thank you, and I want to assure you of the commitment of the African Union Commission in the development of skills and in the development of life-changing projects like the Cubesat program that we are envisaging, and we'll be happy to be involved in the future development. I thank you.